Hey, good morning and welcome to another Friday Q&A. I got two questions today. These ones are going to be totally unrelated, but two questions that actually came through the email, wondering about a couple of topics. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cover both today. The first is going to be training and illness or coming off of illness. How do you kind of bounce back? What are some do's and don'ts of training when you're sick or training around being sick? And then the second question is actually a follow-up to a question I got on weighted balls throwing for baseball and how that fits into a training program and almost like a developmental program for the art of throwing faster, the skill of throwing faster baseballs. So kicking off today, first thing was a question came through from a parent. Kid had gotten sick about that time of year, right, where everyone seems to have something, and they're wondering how do we progress back, or how do we kind of get back into things? Like, is it safe to train when you're sick? And this is a great question because, I mean, if you live up here in Michigan, it is 20 degrees about 6 months out of the year, and so people are a lot more susceptible, seemingly, to get sick up here. For whatever reason, there's not a lot of education that kind of goes into coming back out of that. And so what I've learned in my personal experience, both as someone who trains 5 to 6 days a week, but also who's kind of looked into people who are much smarter than me, the general recommendation is, if you think about it like this: when you're sick, you have obviously no immune system function, or it's functioning improperly. You're basically, if you look at this analogy, kind of almost like a bank account, your bank account is essentially at zero. And training comes at a cost, and so you don't have the sufficient funds to pay for the recovery of training when you're sick. Therefore, you should really not train when you're sick, because all your effort should be spent on trying to kind of improve getting from sick to back to full health. Now, there's a couple caveats with that. Obviously, sleep is going to be your priority when you're sick, but then secondarily to that is going to be hydration and nutrition. So depending on what kind of illness you're dealing with, hydration is going to be a key factor. But most importantly, and this especially for high school aged guys and girls, is making sure we're not losing weight. So it can be very, very difficult to eat when we're sick. And so the best way to kind of counteract this is to try to keep calories as high as possible, so that you don't actually prolong your return by losing weight and kind of throwing a new stimulus at your body to kind of confuse it even more so than it already is. So I try to really encourage people. I love high calorie, low density foods. So that's going to be like spoonfuls of peanut butter, smoothies, anything you can kind of turn into a shake or blend up. It's going to be a lot easier to handle while still kind of keeping your calories up. And then like secondarily to that is coming out of it is you want to try to get moving as much as you can within reason. So maybe a 5x5 deadlift the day after you're sick isn't the way to go, but some sort of kind of movement variation, whether that's, I mean, an easy 10 to 20 minute bike, an easy 10 to 20 minute like mobility stretching circuit, or just body weight circuit, just to get moving, to try to almost prolong or kind of stave off the effects of losing your fitness and kind of where you're at in terms of how good a shape you're in, right? So these kind of quick 10, 20 minute little heart rate tickers where we'll kind of get your heart rate up a little bit and get you moving around, get you sweating, and that can almost kind of improve your ability to get back. It's different than actually working out and training in and of itself, but moving around does seem to help recovery from illness and kind of jumpstart that kind of kickback to getting back into things. So that's training with illness. Thanks for that question there, Chad. I'm going to go ahead now and transition to weighted balls. So getting that time of year where people are starting to ramp up for spring baseball. I know a lot of our guys are getting back on their throwing programs. They're kind of getting into their flat ground work and working up in their long toss as well. But then the question always comes with, like, what's the value of weighted balls? Are they safe? Who are they for? And I want to kind of answer some of those questions, because I think similarly to the illness question is, like, people just don't have a good kind of train of thought, or they don't really understand what kind of goes into weighted ball throws and what it's really trying to accomplish. So to start, I want to talk about who this is for. When I think of weighted ball throwing, I really think this is someone who's really trying to get just a little bit more out of what they're currently doing. So in order to really take advantage of this, one, your technique has to be ingrained and solid. If there's a younger athlete and they're being introduced to weighted balls before all their technical kind of flaws haven't been accounted for, I think that's going to do a lot more harm than good, because it's going to completely change the way they throw the ball from a mechanical standpoint. Second to that is that you need a baseline foundation of strength to even take advantage of the weighted ball itself. So I mean, if you are giving someone who struggles to throw a decently high velocity with a 5-ounce baseball, giving them a 12-ounce baseball isn't going to make them throw any harder, because that's not going to give them more strength. It's not enough weight to make them stronger, but it's too much weight to make them throw faster, if that makes sense. So you kind of get caught in this ugly medium where you're really not doing anything good. You're not necessarily doing anything bad, unless you want to kind of consider drastically changing your mechanics bad. Then I guess it would be considered bad. But that's something to be mindful of. So I like these for guys who are kind of, in college or a well-established high school, and like definitely the pro guys. But then that begs the question, how can you do this safely? And so I think there's kind of two things to consider here, where it's how heavy is the ball, and then what is the distance. A good recommendation would be you're not looking to do any long toss. You're not looking to throw down off of a mound, because that places significantly more stress on the arm. So what we would look to do with something like this is going to be throwing into a net, and it's going to be 6 to 8 feet, and you're not going to play catch with it. I don't recommend anyone go higher than 7 to 12 ounces when they're doing this program, but then and then it also needs to be of a short duration. Like I said, this is a window of time we're trying to take advantage of. So as people are getting into their bullpens, we want to maybe introduce a little bit of weighted ball throwing for maybe 3 to 4 weeks, but always ending with a baseball in hand. So what that would look like is maybe you do a couple pitches with an 8-ounce, a couple pitches with a 10-ounce, and then you work your way back down to a traditional baseball, so we don't lose that feeling and we don't lose the mechanical advantage that it takes to throw that. I mean, it is safe. It's inherently safe if you have the prerequisite strength and you're 100% healthy to begin with. If you jump into a weighted ball program and expect that to not exacerbate any pre-existing injury or kind of expose any pre-existing mechanical flaws in your setup and your approach and your delivery, I think it's going to throw a lot of things off. So I really don't like them for anyone probably under the age of 17 or 18. And that's assuming that 17 or 18-year-old is has a really, really high velocity and they're healthy. That's kind of my 2 cents on weighted balls. I know this time of year, a lot of people start to ramp this stuff up. Be careful with this and make sure you're paying attention to kind of what you need. So whether it's strength to be established first and foremost, or you're a strong kid but you just need to tap into higher velocity, these questions need to be asked in order to make the best decision for you and to figure out what would be best for your program and your development. As always, go ahead, drop a comment, shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you guys regarding this. If there's any follow-ups as well, please do the same. Hope you guys have a great weekend. God bless.